Okay, picture this. You've got a target deep underground. We're talking a 10-foot ventilation shaft buried beneath literal tons of solid granite and completely surrounded by electronic warfare that's designed to jam any incoming signal. Now, imagine you need to hit that exact tiny bullseye from a satellite orbiting 300 miles up in space. You can't use a radio beacon, you absolutely cannot use GPS, so how in the world do you actually do it?
Welcome to today's Explainer. We are unpacking a highly technical theoretical strike sequence outlined in source material covering Project Thor, or as it's much more famously nicknamed, Rods from God. We're going to dive into a pretty fascinating synthesis of declassified patents and theoretical physics to map out exactly how an orbital kinetic bombardment platform like this is mathematically and physically possible.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the orbital sniper concept, look at the tungsten lightning bolt, unpack the quantum gyroscope, break down the AI targeting matrix, and finally, calculate the Mach 10 impact. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. The orbital sniper and how it solves the fallout problem.
To really understand why a weapon system like this was even conceptualized, you have to look at the massive dilemma of modern bunker busting. Look, if a target is buried 3 miles under solid rock, a conventional explosive won't even scratch it. A nuclear bunker buster will, sure, but it leaves behind this undeniable, incredibly messy, radioactive fallout and triggers massive political outrage. But kinetic bombardment, dropping a solid rod of metal from space, that delivers massive destructive yield using literally nothing but the Earth's gravity well. No explosives, no radiation, just a clean, highly deniable strike that brilliantly exploits a known loophole in the 1967 Outer Space Treaty.
Moving to Section 2, the tungsten lightning bolt and the anatomy of the weapon itself.
Before we get into how it aims, we kind of need to understand what exactly is falling from the sky here. We are talking about a solid tungsten cylinder. It's 20 feet long and 1 foot in diameter, and it weighs an astonishing 18,933 pounds. To put that into perspective, that's like dropping a full-size school bus that's forged entirely out of dense metal. And because it has almost zero radar cross-section from the ground, it's essentially a 10-ton needle. The orbital platform just executes a microscopic retroburn, nudges this giant pole out of orbit, and gravity does the rest of the work.
Section 3. The quantum gyroscope and navigating the drop.
So here is the major crisis. As this massive rod falls, it accelerates to Mach 10. That is roughly 7,600 miles per hour. The violent atmospheric friction at that speed would physically shatter a standard mechanical or fiber optic gyroscope into pieces. And we already know GPS is totally useless because of jamming. So how does it actually know which way is down? Well, the source material points straight to U.S. Patent 7317185, which is assigned to the Secretary of the Navy. It's an atom interferometer gyroscope. And the absolute genius of it is that it has literally zero moving physical parts to break.
The physics behind this are just staggering. Atom interferometry relies entirely on quantum mechanics. Inside the falling weapon, there's this tiny vacuum chamber where lasers trap a microscopic cloud of atoms, like rubidium, for example, and they supercool them down to near absolute zero.
At this extreme, near absolute zero temperature, the atoms basically freeze and essentially turn into these delicate quantum waves. The lasers then split those quantum waves into 2 paths and recombine them. If the weapon rotates or shifts even a fraction of a millimeter while plummeting at Mach 10, the interference pattern of those recombined waves changes. The onboard computer reads that change instantly, providing an absolute, mathematically perfect measurement of rotation. It's incredible. It can't be jammed, and it cannot be shaken apart.
All right, Section 4, the AI targeting matrix and finding the bunker.
Okay, so our tungsten rod is falling, and it's perfectly aware of its rotation. But how does its AI mathematically distinguish a highly classified enemy military base from, say, just a natural empty cave system using only gravity sensors? Well, according to the text, it acts a lot like Terminator vision, actively hunting for highly specific, unnatural signatures. First off, it looks for what's called a glass halo, a perfect cylinder of ultra-dense glass left behind by nuclear subterranes that actually melted the bedrock. Second, it senses the metallic core, detecting the thousands of tons of steel and heavy metals from nuclear reactors because nature just doesn't concentrate metals like that. And finally, it detects the thermal plume created by boiling water moving through underground aquifers.
The timeline of this entire processing event is insanely fast. T-4 seconds.
The sensor detects the perfect cylinder of glass. T-3. It registers the unnatural concentration of heavy metals. T-2. It detects the anomalous thermal flow. T-1. The algorithm cross-references all these variables, basically confirming, yep, nature did not build this void. T-0. Absolute coordinates are locked into the quantum gyroscope, and heat-resistant steering fins make their final microscopic adjustments.
Which brings us to Section 5, the Mach 10 impact and total kinetic devastation.
The weapon breaches the lower atmosphere. Keep in mind, it has completely bypassed early warning satellites because it has zero exhaust, and it has completely ignored GPS jammers. The mathematical calculation of this impact is truly apocalyptic. An 8,500 kilogram rod traveling at 3,400 meters per second equates to 4.96 times 10 to the 10th power joules of kinetic energy. That's roughly equivalent to a massive Moab, the mother of all bombs, but get this, it's entirely without an explosive warhead. It doesn't blow outward, it buries itself hundreds of feet deep into solid bedrock, before releasing all of that built-up kinetic force.
The source material summarizes the horrific efficiency of this theoretical strike with this incredibly chilling quote. It reads, "Crushed into plasma by 4.96 times 10 to the 10 joules of kinetic energy before the sound of the impact even reaches the surface." I mean, wow. The sheer localized violence instantly liquefies the bedrock, literally vaporizing the subterranean facility into a tomb, and it does the whole thing silently, leaving absolute zero radioactive trace up on the surface.
So this leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on. While the overarching narrative of a hidden war might seem grand or out there, the core technologies in these government patents, atom interferometry, quantum computing, kinetic bombardment, these are incredibly real fields of study. What actually happens to global security when weapon systems are no longer guided by easily hacked software or spoofable GPS, but by the absolute, immutable laws of quantum physics? It's a terrifying but completely fascinating reality to consider. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning what you see.